V, the third vaccine to enter India, has raised hopes that to a great extent, the problem of shortage of doses will be resolved in the country. In the next half hour, we talk about Sputnik V, the vaccine that Dr. Reddy's labs has collaborated with RDIF in Russia to get to India. The road ahead as far as Sputnik V Light is concerned, and also the anti-COVID drug 2DG that has been made by DRDO in collaboration with Dr. Reddy's. I'm Sneha Mordani. Deepak Sapra, CEO API and Services of Dr. Reddy's Lab, spoke exclusively to India today about Sputnik V, the clearances the vaccine has got, the process of starting the vaccine manufacturing in India, and the cost of the vaccine. Also, the road ahead as far as Sputnik V Light is concerned. Listen in. First of all, you have been the first recipient of Sputnik V in India. Just tell us more about that experience.
Thank you, Sneha. So we got some initial quantities of the Sputnik from Russia, and as part of that, we were doing a pilot run for multiple locations to make sure that our cold chain, our supply chain is intact and is in place. So as a part of that, a few people got vaccinated today. The vaccine was administered to a few people today. Lucky to be one of them, and happy to have taken Sputnik.
Great. Mr. Sapra, I want to ask you, what about the doses? How many doses do we have in India already from Russia, and what's in the pipeline?
Sure. So currently we have 150,000 doses of Sputnik. As far as the pipeline is concerned, the overall number is 250 million vaccines, which is 125 million people doses. So that is the number which we have, which will be rolled out over the next 8 to 12 months in India. And this will happen progressively over a period of time. Currently, the vaccines are coming in from Russia. So we are importing all our vaccines from Russia into India. Over a period of time, which means over the next couple of months, we will also have the Indian manufactured vaccine available in India. And as a result of that, we'll be able to ramp up on the numbers quite significantly and have approximately at a steady state about 20 million vaccines available on a monthly basis once the India production is also upstream.
So by July, you're saying the Indian companies are going to start to manufacture the vaccine?
That is correct. That is correct.
And these will be 6 companies simultaneously?
Yes, these will be 6 companies. Each of them are at different stages of the technology absorption and technology development. The technology came in from Russia. It's getting absorbed here. The process of scale up and the necessary regulatory clearances is underway for each of them. They're at different time points. I expect a couple of the companies to start producing in India from July. And then over the next 2 to 3 months, I expect another couple of companies to come in. And by October, I expect the 5th and the 6th company also to come in. So I believe that in a steady state over the next 4 to 5 months, we will have 6 manufacturers making Sputnik in India. And on a steady state, we should be able to produce about 20 to 25 million per month.
And 20 to 25 million doses per month is from October onwards is what you're expecting?
That is correct. Till such time, it will be a progressive ramp up.
Progressive ramp up. How many doses in exact numbers do we have right now from the RDIF, sir?
So initially we have only the first quantities. It's 150,000 doses that we have, and more will come in over between May and June and July from RDIF.
What about the clearances? The first tranche came on the 1st of May. Why did it take so long, Mr. Sapra? What's going wrong to get clearances for this particular, batch of the vaccine?
No, I think nothing's going wrong. This is all a part of the process. As you know, when you start getting vaccines from outside, there is a process. It needs to be tested. There are certain parameters which need to be assessed. And I think the regulator is absolutely right in making sure that all those parameters are assessed. The safety and the quality is reconfirmed, and then it is rolled out to the people. So I don't see there is a delay. On the contrary, I see a tremendous amount of willingness to work together and support and guide on the protocols and on the specifications, etc. How do we make sure that everything's aligned, the documentation is right, so that as more and more doses come in, as more and more lots come in, this process can be streamlined and smoothened, and the timeline can be very, very fast.
Everybody is asking this, that right now we're getting the vaccines from Russia. You did mention there are 150,000 doses right now in the country, but that certainly isn't good enough. This is the third vaccine that has got the approval, surely the people of the country can expect more in terms of more doses.
That is correct, and this is something which will happen. In the next few weeks. We are expecting more doses to come in May. We are expecting more doses to come in June and July. And this ramp up is going to be very, very steep as we move in the July timeframe, with the India manufactured product also coming upstream.
And by July, we'll have the companies manufacturing in India, and we can expect the prices of the vaccine to come down then, because right now, from what Dr. Reddy's has announced, it is on the steep side, on the higher side, sir.
Yes, the current price that has been announced is for the imported vaccine. We have the India manufactured vaccine available. The prices will be different, and we are also expecting economies of scale, the India cost advantage, to play out as we price the vaccines. The goal of that is really to maximize the access to as many Indians as possible in the shortest possible time frame. And we are working very closely with the partners in India, with also our Russian partners, and also with the government to make sure that this can happen as early as possible.
So what's going to be the price of the vaccine? If you could give us a rough estimate, what's the kind of reduction in the prices that we can expect once these companies start to make in India?
Yeah, at this moment, I will not be able to give you that estimate, Sneha. But what I can say is that we will work on economies of scale. We are working on the India advantage, and we are also working on a variant of the vaccine, which is the 2 to 8 degree product. It's not a variant per se. It's the same vaccine which we are also testing for a 2 to 8 degree stability condition. So if we have the 2 to 8 degree stability in place, we will not have to store and transport it at minus 18 degrees, which we have to do currently. If we get the right data on that, we should be able to save on the logistics, transportation, and the cold chain cost as well. So these are the 3 steps that we are taking, which we believe will help in enabling us to cut our costs and get the vaccine more accessible to people in India.
Okay. Right now, for the average man who is looking at Sputnik V, wants to get a shot of the vaccine, what's the way forward from next week onwards?
So what we are doing is that in a few hospitals, we are going to run those pilots where we are establishing the integrity of the supply chain. We are establishing the cold chain is in place. We are establishing that all the procedures are in place. We expect to have a meaningful quantity in reasonable numbers available across the major cities in India from the middle of June. And till such time, we're going to run these pilots and make sure everything is spot on, we get it right, and all of these things are lined up for the big ramp up, which is going to happen in the subsequent months.
So the government says, Dr. V.K. Paul has said it in the press conference, that Sputnik V is going to be available for us from the next week onwards. I was trying to ask you, how does one then get this shot? Is it going to be available in a few hospitals, is what you're suggesting?
We are tying up with a few hospitals, and just like you do it today for any other vaccine, you go to the CoWIN app, you enter your details, and you have you used to have 2 options available. We will now have 3 options available: Covaxin, Covishield, and Sputnik. Based on that, a person makes the choice and then goes through the rest of the steps.
So you're dealing directly with private hospitals, if I understand you correctly, Mr. Sapra?
So as of now, we are working with private hospitals, and we will also get into tie-ups with other entities, for example, state government entities as well as the central government.
Why is that you chose private hospitals first? Did you sense that, given the cost of the vaccine, not many people will be able to afford it, hence it just makes more sense to have these vaccines in private hospital setups?
So we are making a start. As I told you, we are running these pilots to ensure integrity of our supply chain. That's why we're working with a few partner hospitals to make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. And that is what we are doing with a few select hospitals. We're working also very, very closely with the government and with several agencies of the government to make sure that all these aspects are taken care of as we get into the ramp up in the month of June and July.
June and July, you said this twice. I want to ask you, one can expect this vaccine perhaps to be in government vaccination sites, both central government vaccination sites and state government vaccination sites by June or July? Can we expect that?
We are in discussions with the government. The outcome of those discussions will determine what this time frame is. As I told you, initially the vaccines are all going to be coming in from Russia. Till July, the vaccines are going to be on the imported route. after July, we are also going to have the Indian product available. So not only are we talking about the quantum of the vaccination, we're also talking about the timing and whether the imported vaccine needs to get into all these channels or the imported vaccine will only be in a few select channels. The Indian vaccine, for sure, the product which we will manufacture in India, will be available across all the channels.
The priority group in the country, if they were to get Sputnik V, will they still get it free of cost?
So that is a question which I think you should be asking the government, because that is what the government is doing as a vaccine company and a vaccine manufacturer. We have three major stakeholders: the central government, the state government, and the private sector, and we're working closely with each of these three to see how much we can maximize and how quickly we can maximize.
Any special price for the government? What sort of discussions have been there right now? Anything that you can tell us?
So at the moment, there is no number that I can give you. I think as these discussions progress and as the Indian vaccine becomes closer to date, we will have this fixed up, and for sure we'll communicate it to you.
Okay. Mr. Sapra, you know, a lot has been said about Sputnik V Light, also the single dose vaccine from the same developers. When can we expect this vaccine to come to India? Can we even expect this vaccine to come to India to begin with?
So let me explain what Sputnik Light is. As you know, Sputnik V is a two-component vaccine. So the first shot is something called adenovirus vector 26. The second shot is a component called the adenovirus vector 5. Sputnik Light is essentially just the first shot. So it's adenovirus vector 26. You take the first shot and that's Sputnik Light. And this is something for which we are working very, very closely with our Russian partner. And also we are going to be taking this data from our Russian partner to the Indian regulator to see the possibility of bringing it to India as early as possible. This vaccine got approved in Russia recently. This is demonstrating an efficacy of 79.4%. Clinical trials on this have been conducted on a few thousand people, the phase 3 trials. And as a result of this, we have got these numbers. We believe that this could be a very important aspect of India's vaccination drive, because what it will do is it will convert the whole vaccination program into a vaccine which is also going to give us a single shot option. The single shot option will give us an efficacy of around 79.4%, which is what we have from the Russian data. And it will help us to vaccinate a much larger mass of people in a much shorter time frame, because you have to just take that one shot. And the other thing is that we are also working on the 2 to 8 degrees for this variant. So if we are able to have these two things in place, it will accelerate the process of vaccination in India tremendously and give a big boost to the number of people who are going to get vaccinated over the next few months. So the effort from our side is to get this data, analyze this data from Russia, speak to the Indian regulator, which we'll be doing over the next few weeks, and basis the guidance which we receive from the regulators, we'll do our best to get the Sputnik Light into India as early as possible. What it will do is it will tremendously add to the overall efforts on vaccination and increase the number of people who can be vaccinated on a per month basis.
You know, will India also need to carry on separate trials for Sputnik Light?
So that is a discussion which we will undertake with the regulators. As you know, we already conducted the clinical trials in India for Sputnik V. As part of those trials, we gave the first component. 21 days after the first component, we gave the second component, and that trial data is available. That trial data demonstrated good safety and immunogenicity, on the basis of which we got an approval. We are going to use that data. We're going to use the Russian data that's going to come in additionally, and based on the guidance from the regulator in terms of what else is required from a clinical standpoint, as well as what is called a CMC, which is the chemistry, manufacturing and control standpoint, we will be able to make our application to the regulator. The goal from our side is to do this as early as possible, because we think this is a very, very important aspect of the overall vaccination program and the Sputnik life cycle from Sputnik V to Sputnik Light.
So what you're saying is that the data that you have of the first dosing should be good enough for you to talk to the regulators to give an approval, possibly an emergency use authorization to Sputnik Light also for India.
That is a data which we will use for our dialogue. Yes. For sure, on the single component, you will need some additional bits of data, which is also coming in from Russia, because what happens in the Sputnik Light is you don't give the second shot at all. You just carry on with the first shot. And because you're carrying on with the first shot, the data which we have currently is that on the day 21st, day 21, you're actually giving the second shot, and data thereafter is of 2 vaccines. So we'll have to see how that data pans out. There are scientific methodologies available by which we can discuss that data and the guide. We are actually eagerly awaiting the guidance from the regulator on that. And basis that guidance, we will take our next steps.
So 2 sets of data is what you're going to present to the regulators, if I got you right, Mr. Sapra?
That is absolutely correct.
Okay.
What we have from India, that's already with the regulator, but we'll also layer it up with the additional Russian data that's available and have a dialogue with the regulator.
What sort of a boon do you see with Sputnik Light entering the Indian market or being given to Indians, given the fact that it is such a nightmare right now for anybody to go in for a second dose of the vaccine? People are just not getting the second dose of the vaccine, Mr. Sapra.
Yes, I think Sputnik Light can be a very, very important aspect of the overall vaccination program that we are running in India. It could be a game changer from the standpoint of making it a lot simpler programmatically and a lot simpler also from the standpoint of the individual in question, and really get a lot many more Indians vaccinated in a much shorter span of time. So from that perspective, it will be a very, very important addition to what we have in India already.
You know, Mr. Sapra, the other thing that I want to talk to you about is the anti-COVID oral medicine that Dr. Reddy's labs has developed along with the DRDO. Just do tell us a little more about 2DG. When is it going to be available in India? You know, and how are the people going to have access to this medicine, given the fact that the approvals have come through?
So 2DG is a molecule that has been developed by Dr. Reddy's in collaboration with DRDO, which is the Government of India Ministry of Defense arm. DRDO has an arm called INMAS, which is the Institute of Nuclear Medicine and Allied Sciences. So we have collaborated with them to develop this molecule. 2DG is an oral dose. So it's a kind of a powder in a sachet. You put that powder in 100 ml of water and you drink it 2 times a day. And that is how it is supposed to be dosed. So it's very, very easy to take. It is recommended for moderate to severe category of COVID patients in a hospitalized condition. What it has been shown to do is to improve the levels of oxygen in the patient. It has been shown to demonstrate that the amount of saturation that you have can improve once you take 2DG in conjunction with the standard of care, which means that whatever you're taking otherwise, whatever is the standard of care, whatever medications have been prescribed to you by the doctor, in addition to that, you take 2DG and it helps in demonstrating this improvement. So we got the approval for this product recently, and we are in the process of manufacturing this product, and we expect to roll this out in June, and it will be available across hospitals in India, both government as well as private.
Russia's Sputnik V has finally arrived in India. The Indian government says it should be available in the market for Indians next week. But slow production capacities for India's vaccines have been seeing states struggling for doses. Is Sputnik V going to pass the production hurdles? Here's a report from Milan Sharma.
After a 14-day delay since the first batch arrived in India, the first shot of Russia's Sputnik V was administered in India. But even as the second batch arrived in Hyderabad today, there are only as much as 300,000 doses for everyone in a country of billions. So the only question, how soon can Dr. Reddy's ramp up production of the Russian COVID vaccine? It did face a few hurdles in testing. The first batch went to get checked to the Central Drugs Laboratory in Kasauli, Himachal Pradesh for sterility, toxicity, efficacy or any sort of contamination of the vaccine batch among other factors, which further delayed its rollout by 2 weeks. Meanwhile, the Indian government is hoping the Russian doses will be available to India next week.
स्पुतनिक वैक्सीन देश में आ गया है और आज मुझे ये कहते हुए खुशी है कि अगले हफ्ते हमें उम्मीद है कि स्पुतनिक वैक्सीन विल बी अवेलेबल इन द मार्केट। जो लिमिटेड सप्लाई पहली आई है वहाँ से वो उसकी बिक्री शुरू होने की उम्मीद है अगले हफ्ते अर्ली नेक्स्ट वीक, और उसके बाद उनकी और सप्लाईज आएंगी और फिर जुलाई के महीने से ये बनना शुरू हो जाएगा और ये सब कुछ उस पीरियड में 15.6 करोड़ तक बनने का एस्टीमेट है फ्रॉम द कंपनी.
Since this is a vaccine that is stored at -18 degrees, experts say its transport and logistical issues will make it available only for private facilities for now.
I understand about 15 million doses are already there. And from next week onwards, I think distribution is going to start. Probably it might start with private sector or big hospitals. And the reason is that it requires -20 degree storage, although in public sector also that is possible.
But production niggles could still make it difficult for Dr. Reddy's production to ramp up at a breakneck speed. The government projects Dr. Reddy's and Sputnik V to make 15.6 crore doses for India between August to December 2021. The Russian Direct Investment Fund has recently announced agreement with 5 companies in India: Panacea Biotech, Warsaw Biotech, Stellis Biopharma, Hyderabad-based Gland Pharma and Hetero to produce multi-million doses of Sputnik V.
For now, the arrival of the Sputnik V vaccine in India does not ensure that it will be accessible to a large part of the country. The Russian Direct Investment Fund, along with 5 other companies in India, expects to ramp up production to produce at least 500 million doses, but that is only till the end of the year. For now, the production will start by July, and therefore the limited number of doses of Sputnik V will only be accessible to a few for some time. In New Delhi, Milan Sharma for India Today.